I'm here talking about what nobody tells women starting over at 50. I have some notes. Starting over isn't always scary. Sometimes, sometimes staying where you are is scary. Because by the time you reach 50, you've accumulated a whole lot of life. You've been somebody's daughter, you've been somebody's wife, you've been somebody's mother, somebody's employee, somebody's caretaker, or is that just me? You've been the strong one. You have been the dependable one, the one everybody calls when they need something. You've been that person. And somewhere along the way, you may have forgotten. You may have become so good at being everything for everybody else that you forgot to ask yourself, what do I want now? Not what does everybody need from me? Because that is typically what we do in midlife, what we have done. Not what's practical, not what's expected, not what makes everyone else comfortable. What do I want? And that's a question that I started asking myself. Because for those of you that don't know, I am 57 years old, on my way to being 58 in November. And I'm so excited about it. I don't think I ever thought I would feel the way that I feel now about where I am in my life. But that's where starting over at 50 gets interesting because you're not starting from zero. So we're not, just coming out the gate like we were at 20 or for me, 19. You're starting from experience. And baby, that's a completely different thing. First part I want to talk about is you're not too old. One of the biggest lies women are taught is that there's some expiration dates on becoming. That somehow, if you haven't figured it all out by 30, you've missed your window. If you haven't built a career by 40, it's too late. If you're 50, you're supposed to settle down, become invisible, and just be grateful for whatever you've already accomplished. But who made that rule? Who decided for us? Because I don't subscribe to it. At 50, you know things you didn't know at 25. You know what heartbreak feels like. You know what it feels like to lose yourself. You know what it feels like to find yourself again. Hello. You've learned what you will tolerate. You've learned what you won't. You've learned that some relationships aren't meant to last forever. We're talking about what nobody tells women starting over at 50. I was explaining that I'm 57 and I'm right here in the thick of it, learning and growing and shifting. But you've learned that relationships aren't meant to last forever. You've learned that some opportunities aren't worth the price. You've learned that peace is expensive and you're finally willing to pay, to pay for it. So no, you're not starting over as the woman you were at 25. You're starting over as the woman who survived everything that brought her here. That's power. Here's another thing nobody tells you. Starting over can feel like grief. It is, it really is. It's such a wonderful time, even though it can be scary and it can be hard. It can be all those things. However, starting over can feel like grief, and I know what that feels like too, because I retired at 55 and I wanted to, of course, we all do, but I didn't prepare to do that. I ended up having to leave my career because I got sick and I just couldn't do it anymore. And so I understand that it can feel like grief, even when you're excited, even when you know you're making the right decision. Because sometimes you're just not releasing, you're not just releasing a situation, you're releasing an identity. I saw somebody talking about this the other night or yesterday. It was a young lady that she had gotten laid off at 55 and she had all kind of education degrees and all kind of stuff. She'd gone to Harvard and all these things, and she got laid off and she couldn't find another job. And she talked about how, as especially we make our identity our career and our job. And so when you leave that thing, then all of a sudden you don't have an identity. And so you're thrusting grief. And this is the same thing with marriages. Maybe you're the woman, maybe you're the woman who got divorced, or you're the woman who had the marriage and now you're divorced. Maybe you're the woman who had the career, just like I was talking about, and now you're reinventing yourself. Maybe your children are grown and you don't know who you are without constantly mothering. My sister, actually, I just had a conversation with my sister on Facebook about that. She is now an empty nester. Her son just graduated and he's going to college, and he's the last one. And so you have to understand and figure out who you are without having to constantly mother. Now, just because our children grow up doesn't mean we stop being a mother, but it changes your role in their lives and even in your own life. So suddenly you're sitting here thinking, okay, now what? That question can feel terrifying. I've talked to so many women about just that, the empty nest part. They were raising these children and you're running the football games and basketball games and soccer and in my case, my son did plays all through high school. So every time you look, we were running over here, there, all over town. We had to go and get costumes. They told us they would give us a list of what they needed, and they told us go to Goodwill or Salvation Army and get that. And then they had somebody that would create it or recreate it for the child's costume. And so I had all that stuff to do. And plus, I worked two and three and four jobs as well. And I still had sort of kind of a husband. And so for me, I understand how, you when you get away from that, at first you don't even know what to do. You have to almost sit down and hold yourself and say, okay, yes, this is a shift now because it is. And it can feel terrifying. But but I want you to hear me now. Now what is not a crisis? It can be an invitation to meet yourself again, not the version of you that everybody else needed, the version of you that got buried underneath all of those responsibilities. Listen to me. The version of you that got buried underneath all of those responsibilities. And so, one thing I've learned about this journey is you may outgrow people. And let's start talking about something else nobody tells women. When you start reclaiming yourself, everybody may not celebrate it. Some people were comfortable with the old you, the version of you who said yes, the version who overextended herself, the version of you who didn't complain, the version who made herself smaller. That's okay, never mind, I don't need it. That version. And the version of who accepted crumbs because she didn't want to be difficult. And when that woman starts disappearing, people notice. Suddenly, you're different. You're acting funny. You're too much. You are selfish. You're doing too much. And sometimes the truth is, you are different. And guess what? You are not doing too much. You're doing you. And different doesn't mean wrong. Sometimes growth looks like becoming unfamiliar to people who benefited from your lack of boundaries. I'm going to say that word again, boundaries. And I need women in midlife to understand something. You don't need permission to evolve. You don't need everybody to understand your transformation. You don't need a committee to approve the next chapter of your life. You need to listen to yourself. And sometimes that can be hard because we're so used to listening to so many other people. I mean, I must admit, I have people that I follow that I listen to, but what I've learned is that I get what I need to get from them and then I move on. You know, I don't even say, you know what, I'm gonna follow so and so. I don't follow anybody blindly, you know, because everybody might have a nugget for you, but it doesn't mean that you subscribe to whatever it is they are, whatever they're putting out. So this is where I get really, really passionate, y'all, because I believe midlife is reclamation. It's not trying to look 25. It's not about proving you're still desirable. It's not about competing with younger women. It's not about pretending aging isn't happening. Baby, let it happen. We earn these years. I don't want to go backwards. I want to go deeper. I want more truth, more freedom, more adventure, more laughter, more fun, more spiritual authority, more experiences that make me feel alive. I want to wake up and ask, what would feel good to my soul today? And I do. And actually listen for the answer. Because maybe the first half of your life was about survival. And I can say that. The first half of my life was about survival. Maybe it was about building. Maybe it was about raising children. Maybe it was about making money. Maybe it was about proving yourself. You know, many times we are in different careers, and and for me, I was a nurse for 32 years. And so, a lot of nurses I noticed, they want to be super nurse. They want to be what's her name, Florence Nightingale, or Mary Mahoney. They want to be, one of those legendary women, in nursing. And so they want to get everything. They think that means that they should get everything right. And, they just want to be better than everyone else and all this stuff. And they want to prove stuff and prove that you're the best nurse and the greatest nurse on earth and all this other kind of shit. But what if this next chapter is about experiencing yourself? What if you get to create simply because you love creating, which is the space that I'm in? I'm so blessed. Travel because you want to travel. Dance because you want to dance. Start the business because the idea won't leave you alone. Wear the damn outfit. Take the trip. Buy the flowers. Plant the flowers. Go sit by the water. Go walk in the beach, in the water. Laugh loudly. Fall in love with your own life. Why not? This is probably one of the hardest lessons for women who have spent their lives being responsible. You don't need to know the whole plan. And that was particularly difficult for me. It was very hard. I just was like, I always want to know what's going to happen. I'm one of those people that I used to read books when I was young. I love to read. And so I would always go and read the end and then go back and read the book. I was that person. I would go and, even like watching movies sometimes, I would go and see what was going to happen in the end and then, watch the rest of it. But we want the 5-year plan. We want the guarantee. We want to know how it's going to work. But sometimes your next chapter doesn't come with a blueprint, it comes with a whisper, a desire, an idea, a curiosity, a feeling that says, there's more from me. And you don't have to know exactly what the more is yet. You just have to be willing to follow the next breadcrumb. That's where I believe intuition becomes so powerful because intuition doesn't always give you the whole map. Sometimes it gives you the next step, and your job isn't to demand the entire staircase. Your job is to take the step in front of you. And let me tell you how important that is. I am in the process of creating a few things. And so I noticed that sometimes when I get stuck, I'll stop, because I don't know the blueprint. However, what I'm learning is don't stop. Take a break and then come back at it. Maybe your perspective will shift once you take that break and you come back at it. And I mean, take an hour, a couple days, few minutes, whatever it is for you, whatever you determine a break is for you, and then come back at it and see, where you go from there. The other thing is, y'all, stop asking if you're allowed. This might be the biggest message I have for women starting over 50. Stop asking if you're allowed. Who said you couldn't change careers? And that was something that was big for me because I had wanted to change careers. I think I was in burnout in my career at least the last 10 to 15 years. And I kept trying to change and I did different things and I got an insurance license. I did that a little bit. I really didn't like that. I did a few other things. I had a few little side businesses and stuff that I was hoping would grow to be huge. I did Avon, you name it, I freaking did it. All kinds of different things. And I used to just try anything because I felt like anything would be better than what I was doing. But no. So, who said you couldn't move? I did that too. God told me to move, and I packed my car, told my children because they were grown, packed my car, and I said, it's time for me to leave this place, and I'm out of here. And I left. And it was the best thing that I could have done with my life. Who said you couldn't travel alone? Did that. Drove all the way across the country by myself with a car full of shit. When I think about it now, I think about how dangerous that could have been because it was just me. And if y'all don't know, I'm 5 feet tall. At the time, probably about, I think I was a little bit thicker then, but still, I'm 5 feet tall. I'm a woman, black woman, traveling across the country, drove all the way through freaking Texas, you know. Who said you couldn't fall in love again? I did that. I fell in love. I drove across the country and met my husband where I landed, and we've been together ever since. Who said you couldn't reinvent yourself? Doing that, I'm so excited about it because I don't even start the conversation with, I'm a nurse. Never. I don't start the conversation like that ever again. Who said you couldn't become spiritual? Whatever that looks like it means for you. Who said you couldn't change your mind? Who said you couldn't decide that the thing you wanted at 35 isn't what you want at 57? I'm telling you, I wanted different things in those years. You are allowed to change. You're allowed to disappoint people. You're allowed to have boundaries. You're allowed to want more. You're allowed to want less. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to start. You're allowed to stop. You are allowed to become someone you've never been before. And maybe that's the real work of midlife, not becoming somebody new, remembering who you were before the world told you who you were supposed to be. I hope y'all are picking up what I'm putting down because I'm telling you, this shit is fire. Your life is not over. Your performance is. So we're getting to a place where we stop performing. And I know y'all know what that means because we perform almost every day of our life. I want to leave you with this though. Maybe your life isn't falling apart. Maybe the version of your life that was built around everyone else's expectations is finally falling away. And that can feel uncomfortable. I'm telling you, it can. Because you spent years performing strength, performing happiness, performing motherhood, performing marriage, performing success, perhaps, and performing, I've got it all together. And maybe now you don't want to perform anymore. You just want to live fully, honestly, joyfully, spiritually, with your whole damn heart. And that, my love, is what I call midlife reclamation. So if you're sitting somewhere right now at 50 or 52 or 57 or 62 or 65 or 70 or 75 or 80 or 85, and you're thinking, is it too late for me? Let me answer that for you. No, no, it is not too late. You are not behind. You are not washed up. You are not invisible. You are not irrelevant. You are not finished. You are becoming. And maybe this is the first time in your life that you get to build a life that actually feels like you. Not your mother, not your husband, not your children, not your boss, not society, you. So go ahead, start over, start messy, start scared, start with $20. Start with an idea, start with a prayer, start with a walk, start with a boundary, start with saying no, start with saying yes. Start by asking yourself one simple question. If nobody else had an opinion about my life, what would I choose? And then listen, because there is still so much life in you. There are still places you haven't seen, people you haven't met, ideas you haven't created, laughter you haven't laughed, love you haven't experienced, and versions of yourself you haven't even met yet. You are not starting over. You're starting from everything you've learned, and this time you get to choose. This is your second chapter, your reclamation, your awakening, your becoming. And baby, remember who the fuck you are today. Do it now. So if you're picking up what I'm putting down, come and join me in the remembrance. I have an amazing community just for us midlife girlies to come in and have community. I have a whole host of things that we'll be doing in there. New moon rituals, full moon rituals, um, God, so many things. And I'll be popping things in just for you. And it's not another place to just, come in and have 50,000 million things to do because you don't need that in your life. You need a place where you can come in. You can, like the Cheers bar, where everybody knows your name and they're glad you came. We'll be doing monthly Zoom calls. I'm so excited about this. I cannot wait for you to join me. So if that is something in your orbit, and I have 4 tiers available. So there is a price point for everyone if that's something that you're concerned about. So I'll drop the link in the comments. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I will see you again later this week, I think. I'll see you again, and I appreciate you coming. And thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing so that these videos can get out there for more midlife girlies to check out and come and be in this room. So I appreciate you. Again, if you don't know me, my name is Tammy Morrison or Intuitive Tammi, and I'm here to help. I'm here to help.